Well, good day, everybody, and welcome back. Well, the last few days, I've been thinking about the typewriter revival that's been happening in the last, let's say, 15 years or so, and comparing that to this current revival in film photography. If you haven't noticed that there is a huge revival going on right now in film photography, and the prices of roll film, both 35mm and 120 formats, are going through the roof. And the situation, though, between typewriters and film cameras is actually quite similar, because despite the film photography revival, right now there may only be one new film camera being manufactured, and that is the Leica M6. There's a new version of it just released recently. In the same way with typewriters, we don't have any manual typewriters being manufactured to speak of, and I'm ignoring the very poorly made copies coming out of East Asia that are really designed for crafters and not for serious writers. There are some electronic daisy wheel typewriters still being manufactured. Nakajima, in the United States, there is Swintech, whose typewriters are manufactured by Nakajima, and there is also new old stock from Brother that's still available online. Brother just a few years ago quit manufacturing their typewriters, but they're still available new. So, very similar situation between film cameras, film photography, and between typewriters. But I'd like to talk today about what I call the 21st century typewriter. Stay tuned. So here's an example of one such daisy wheel typewriter. This is a Brother. This is an SX4000. It's indicative of the kind of daisy wheel typewriters you can still buy today brand new. Daisy wheel typewriters are an artifact of the 1980s. The few that are still being manufactured today are carryovers from 1980s technology. But we live in the 21st century, and I'd like to think about what is a 21st century typewriter, considering that all of us typewriter lovers love our mechanical or manual typewriters, and I certainly do. But going forward, what does it mean to use typewriters when you might want to have a newly manufactured typewriter? In other words, there are people out there that they're not like you or me necessarily, who are collectors and tinkerers, and we've gained some skills in keeping these old machines running. There's people out there who simply want to be writers. They want to create with paper, write to paper, and they want a non-distractive device that's very typewriter-like. And so I'd like to talk about, what does it mean when I say 21st century typewriter? Well, what does it mean when I say typewriter? What is the essence of typewriter? And I would start by saying, first of all, it is a mechanically efficient keyboard, a haptically or ergonomically efficient keyboard for your fingers. And I look at both of these typewriters. These are from different eras. These keyboards are both pretty nice to use, in contrast to a lot of new keyboards that we find on, let's say, laptop computers. Here is a late model 2023 MacBook Pro, and this keyboard is typical of a lot of laptop keyboards. But one of the things that you notice, maybe if you've used them, is you really can't easily tell where your fingers are at. The spaces between the keys are very, very short. There is hardly any texture to the keys, and they give you a couple on the J and the F key. They give you a couple little raised dash marks so you can kind of tell where the home row is. Also, the key throw is almost negligible. It's only maybe a millimeter, maybe a millimeter and a half. These keyboards, I find, are not really that easy to use for long-term writing. I find they're error prone, and I end up not using them as much as I like, because I really like more of a mechanical keyboard where I can tell easily when I've pressed the key and all that. So this is indicative of modern laptop keyboards, and laptops supposedly have taken the place of typewriters now, we're being told. But let's go into more details about what I consider to be the 21st century typewriter, or at least one version of it. So one of the developments that happened during the daisy wheel typewriter era is they started coming up with little screens. This one has a 15-character liquid crystal display. This brought about the idea of some kind of a limited editing technology before the letters get printed to paper. And the evolution of daisy wheel typewriters from the 1980s through the 90s went from simple one-line displays like this typewriter has to really full-blown word processors. They had larger LCD displays. storage. You had multi-page document memory and all this. So they essentially became very computer-like. So going forward into the 21st century, what it means to have a 21st century typewriter, I think, there's three elements to it. First of all, as I mentioned earlier, is the very ergonomic typewriter-like keyboard. Gives you haptic feedback, very satisfying, and a keyboard that you might be able to, in fact, customize. That is to say, a particular keyboard with a certain particular type of tactile feel that you could test ahead of time before you buy it. Does that sound interesting? And also, you might even be able to customize the color of the keycaps. Yes, okay? So that's the keyboard part of it. And it's the same QWERTY or QWERTZ or whatever country you're in, the same keyboard we've known all along in terms of the layout. The second element, though, is a much better electronic display. And the electronic display would include some rudimentary editing features and connectability, etc., which brings it to the heart of the device being a tablet-like device. Okay? And then the third element to the 21st century typewriter is paper. I think this is the essence of what it means going forward in the 21st century to have a typewriter-like workflow, a mechanical-like keyboard that's very suited to your particular writing style, a very portable and usable screen device to enter the words into, and a printing device to print the words to paper. I think the typewriter writing workflow is always centered around or based on paper as the ultimate output. That's what I'm calling, for the purposes of this video, the 21st century typewriter. Mechanical-like keyboard interface, the end result is paper. So let me show you what I've come up with. When I say 21st century typewriter, there are several devices out on the market that are trying to achieve that goal today. One of those is the Freewrite. And the Freewrite is basically a very mechanical-like keyboard with a digital paper interface screen and a rudimentary text editor. The software is designed really for non-editing kind of writing, a workflow where you just keep writing. It's very primitive editing capability. You really basically just have to backspace. It's kind of based on a vision of a writing device similar to the AlphaSmart Neos, but with a larger screen and an e-ink display screen. So those have been around for quite a few years. I think maybe in 20 years or so, the AlphaSmarts have in various forms. When I was thinking about this, first of all, I don't want to buy a Freewrite because they're really pricey. And then secondly, I have an AlphaSmart Neo, but the software is no longer being supported by Renaissance Learning. And so they're basically just like now manual typewriters. They're used, they're out on the used market, and you basically have to get them and deal with whatever problems you have. They're not supported, in other words. So if you're interested in devices that are supported, I have one other potential option. This isn't the only option. This is just what I've put together. And I put this together through components that I've already have. So I didn't build this system just for this video. This is something I've been using for quite a while. Keyboard devices. I've had this keyboard for a few years now. This is made by KB Paradise, Keyboard Paradise. It is a mechanical keyboard. It has Cherry MX switches, and the interesting thing about this keyboard, it's actually quite heavy and solid. This is called a 60% keyboard, meaning it has the basic alphanumeric keys. There's no function keys. You have your number keys up here, and there's no 10-digit keypad or cursor keys. So it's a 60% size keyboard is what these are known as. It's configurable with dip switches for either Mac or PC, and it'll run on tablet devices as well. So if you are a gamer, you know about these kinds of keyboards, and they come in a wide variety of colors. This one is pretty drab gray looking, but there's another keyboard company called WASD, and they make gaming keyboards, and that company, you can custom order the color scheme that you want. In fact, if you go to WASD's website, you'll see a whole gallery of people's custom keyboard layouts in different colors that they've designed, which I think is really cool. Well, so here's really what you need to customize a mechanical keyboard like this. Remember, this is the first part of the three-part 21st Century keyboard concept. Go to Amazon, and I will provide you with a link in the description down below. And you want to buy one of these. This is a Cherry MX key switch tester. And what this does, this gives you all 6 of the different types of Cherry MX key switches. Well, the purpose of this is for you to try out all the different types of Cherry MX keys and see which one you really like. And you should try them on all 10 of your fingers, including your thumbs, of course, and see are you a Cherry MX blue guy? Do you like the brown? Do you like the green, the white, the red, or whatever? Well, it turns out, parenthetically, I happen to like the brown. So Cherry MX brown, I bought this first, I tested it, I figured out what kind of keys I liked, and then I went and ordered this from KB Paradise with Cherry MX brown switches. So this is how you come up with a typewriter-like keyboard that is customized to your liking. Is you buy one of these key testers, and then you can find out exactly how you like it. You can basically find a lot of different mechanical keyboards that will interface with tablet-like devices to make our 21st Century typewriter. This one happens to be not a Bluetooth keyboard. This happens to be wired. Now, that's my personal preference, okay? For a number of reasons, but mainly because if you're out and about in a mobile situation, you don't have to worry about charging your keyboard. Does my keyboard have enough battery power, first of all? And secondly, if you had a Bluetooth kind of a device with a Bluetooth keyboard, now you're having to run the Bluetooth radio on your tablet-like device, and that is also going to limit your battery life. So using a wired, non-Bluetooth mechanical keyboard gives you the best battery life at the price of connectivity. You have to use cables that goes from this style of USB, which is what the keyboard takes on its connector back here, to a standard USB-A. And you can get these in different lengths. The one I had, or the one it came with, was a little long, but you can find shorter versions. And then I am interfacing my mechanical keyboard to an Apple tablet device using a lightning connector. So this is a USB-A to lightning connector adapter, okay? So this gets to the second part of the 21st Century typewriter, and that is, I think, for my purposes, the best keyboard device is going to be an iPad mini. Now, this is because I happen to have an iPad mini. In fact, it is my main type of device that I use for recreational surfing of the internet. But I find an iPad mini is a really nice sized device for using it with a mechanical keyboard and making it into what you might call a 21st Century typewriter. And incidentally, when I bought my keyboard from KB Paradise, yes, it comes with this nice drawstring cloth pouch. These are kind of like gaming keyboards where you would take your nice keyboard to a gaming site, a gaming contest or whatever. So very clicky, nice mechanical feeling keyboard. So I'm suggesting to you that one of your options for a 21st Century typewriter is going to be a mechanical keyboard combined with an iPad, and you can use the cheapest iPad, plenty of memory for any writing project you might have, and when you buy an Apple device like this, they give you a 5 gigabyte iCloud account, so you have iCloud storage. So here is one option. This is what I pieced together because I already had an iPad mini and I already had a mechanical keyboard I'd been using. I'm using, again, this Apple Lightning connector to USB for my wired keyboard. That's my personal preference. You can use a Bluetooth keyboard if you want, that's fine, but this uses less electricity. I can go out in the desert and type with this, and the tablet is going to last longer. I put the tablet in airplane mode if I'm away from a Wi-Fi signal, and I don't have to worry about Bluetooth on a keyboard sucking down the batteries. Okay, that being said, there are several writing options. In fact, there's a lot of writing options in the Apple ecosystem here. So one of the particular options I really like is IA Writer, but there's also Hanks Writer, which is Tom Hanks's typewriter-like app. IA Writer I really love as a minimalist kind of writing tool, and I'm going to start typing. And the thing about this particular writing app is it's not like a full-blown word processor. It's more of a text editor. You can copy and paste text into it, but it's a very non-distractive looking interface. Okay, so IA Writer, I've been using that a lot over the years. I really like the app. So I would recommend that might be one of the options you might want to use if you want to use one of these Apple iPad minis. Okay, another option for you to write with is Hank's Writer, which is Tom Hanks's app that he created. And this is a very typewriter-centric app that, if you haven't used it, is quite fun. And you can customize it to have different typewriter looks. So I'm not going to go review this here, but Hank's Writer is pretty cool as well. And then there is another option, of course, with Apple ecosystem, is you have the regular Apple word processor program Pages, which is basically similar to like Apple's version of Microsoft Office. So Pages gives you a full word processor capability. It's in every Apple device. So once you have your document started, on these devices, you can sit here and you can directly print this to a printer that is on your network. Also, this document will be saved in your Documents folder, your Files folder on the tablet as well. And you can share it other ways. You can email it to somebody. You can open it in another word processing app, which is very handy. So at the moment, I do not have a network printer connected to my network, but if I did, in IA Writer, in the document, I'd be able to hit the share button and select print, and I'd be able to print it directly to the printer. There are other options, however, if you want to print a document like that. Like in my case, I have a non-network printer. It won't really connect to a tablet device like this. So what I would do is I would airdrop my file to my laptop and print it from there. Whatever the case may be with your particular printer setup, having a printer available is kind of the third part of the 21st Century Typewriter methodology. So I was looking online at the idea of portable printers because one of the options might be that you'd want to be able to do an entire paper-based workflow out, let's say on vacation or out in the field. You need a portable printer. I've been looking around at those. Shopping around on Amazon, and I noticed they have an HPRT brand MT800 thermal transfer printer. It'll support letter-sized paper. It's portable, battery-powered, rechargeable, uses Bluetooth for connectivity. It works with either Android or iOS. It uses these little cartridges, these thermal transfer ribbons, so it'll print on normal paper. That is, it'll print on non-thermal paper, even though it's a thermal printing technology. So then if you get this particular transfer ribbon cartridge package, this ends up being $8.50 per cartridge, and each cartridge will print 48 sheets of paper on this printer. So that's like maybe 15 or 20 cents per sheet as far as what this would cost you. So that probably gets close to being the best, most economical kind of way to use a totally portable small printer solution with your 21st Century Typewriter device out in the field. Well, this is my idea for the 21st Century Typewriter, and all of this is really for the purposes of being able to have a typewriter-like workflow, which is ergonomic keyboard that outputs ultimately to paper. The idea is this is a paper-based creative workflow. You can work with the paper itself as an output. You can configure the tablet to be minimalist in complexity using a minimalist kind of text editor like IA Writer or others that are available. Put the tablet in airplane mode, just use it like this as a standalone typewriter, and then you can output to paper. I don't really think we're going to see manual typewriters being made new again with any kind of quality, and whatever daisy wheel electronic typewriters are currently out there, it's really a carryover from the 1980s and 90s, and those will probably eventually go away. I hope not, but they probably will. And so we're left with antiques. Like if the only car you had to drive to get to work was pre-World War II. So you would have to take the time and the energy and the interest to learn how to maintain it. But that may not be your desired way of expending your creative energy. Maybe you want to spend your creative energy on writing, right? If that's the case, here is one option, a 21st Century Typewriter. Now, what I've offered you today is just my own little version of it, and there's a lot of different ways of configuring these separate components into a 21st Century Typewriter, including buying a standalone device, as I mentioned earlier, that are out there. They're kind of pricey and they're somewhat limited in the way they work. Okay, so how much would this cost you to buy these components new? So the cheapest iPad that you can get, I'm seeing as of this date, is the iPad 9th generation, not the mini, but the regular iPad, is $330, $329, we'll call it $330. And then the Keyboard Paradise 60% keyboard is around $90. So about $420 roughly. And then if you get that portable thermal transfer printer that I saw on Amazon, that's about $170. Those three components, your mechanical keyboard, your cheapest iPad, and the thermal transfer printer, a total of around $580 maybe. That's probably around the cost of a Freewrite, but this is a standalone mobile typewriter. It actually will print to paper. And also, the system, as being composed of separate components, mechanical keyboard and tablet device, the system becomes upgradable in the future. If you ever have problems with your keyboard, which I haven't, and mine is really dirty and it still works fine, but these will still be available, and they'll still be making tablet devices well into the future. So this is a future upgrade path that will keep you current in the 21st century. And I should also point out that the prices I'm quoting are certainly not the cheapest keyboards. You can get some pretty inexpensive, more like laptop style keyboards for iPads or mobile tablets. But I'm suggesting a mechanical keyboard with customizable switches that you can choose yourself, so you have the right feeling keyboard for a serious writing system. Well, I'd love to hear your thoughts about the idea of a 21st century typewriter. That is, the beauty of how typewriters work informing the way we can use 21st century technology and keeping it paper-based ultimately. Well, I hope this gives you ideas for your creative venture, and until next time, stay well, stay creative, and have yourselves a great day. And bye-bye for now.